there's one thing that you heard from this podcast that you know can help your relationship out, and make a commitment right now to apply that to your relationship. Because there's no point of listening to us if you're not going to apply this stuff, because you're not going to get anywhere. Time does not heal all. It's what you do with that time. So you can stay in a relationship for 5-10 years, hoping that the relationship is going to change or that the person is going to change. Nothing changes with time if you don't change.
What's up, real ones? Welcome back to the Relationship Podcast, where we're bringing the real back to relationships.
Yes, sir.
I'm Asha Steele.
I'm Devon Steele.
And we're so excited that you guys are tuning in today with us.
Yeah, because we got another great episode for y'all today, man. I'm glad to be back on the mic with my wifey.
Always.
You know?
I'm excited.
Why? Why are you so excited?
Because it's always exciting when you get to go in, sit down and chat. We get to have a great conversation, and we do it for you guys. Y'all get to hear it, and we get to get y'all feedback. So it's always exciting. You never know what direction the conversation can go in sometimes.
Hopefully we do. I'm going to have to do a lot of editing if we don't know what's going on.
We have an outline, but the conversation can go many places.
Yeah. So let's see where we're going to start off today.
So let's just get into the keeping it real moment, y'all, because these past few weeks, it's been a lot going on. But there was one specific day that it was a lot that was going on. Okay.
Tell us about it.
Yes. Let me take y'all down this, memory lane of what happened like 2 weeks ago. Okay. So it's the holiday season, we decided to go to at home. We were picking up a couple things, right? Not too much, just to like decorate the yard or whatever. And
Not too much. She done bought like these reindeers and sleighs to put in the front yard.
Something cute.
It wasn't just something light.
It was something light because, I plan on doing like the whole spectacular where you see like people on the news where they have their whole house lit up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to do that so we can be on the news.
No, I don't want to be on the news.
It's like, no. We went to at home and we were going Christmas shopping, okay? Now, before we get into the store, we're walking into the doors and there's a vehicle that's driving past the entrance of the store. And there's a man crossing from, I guess, like the store going, I don't know if he was going to his car. I don't know where he was walking to. But he was just walking in the direction of the parking lot as if he was going to his car. Yeah. And there's a car driving towards him. And I guess the man got frightened, thinking that the car was going to hit him or something. I think did he beep his horn at him? He beeped his horn, and I don't know if he was like just frightened by the horn or what. So he turned around and like he jumped like real hysterical. And we looked, and in my mind, I'm thinking like, well, what's going on? Because there was a decent amount of distance between the car and the guy. So I'm guessing he was just startled. So we proceed to walk towards the store. But before we get in, the guy that's outside is now like, I guess, yelling at the person in the car. The person in the car gets out and there's an altercation, right? I can't really see that far, y'all, okay? I don't have my glasses on, so I don't really know what's all happening. But Devon is like just there. He's watching. There's a few other people that's watching. And all I know is that I'm thinking we about to just proceed into the store because I'm like, listen, I mind a business that pays me. I don't want to get too involved with other people's stuff because things be happening. And so I'm just like, all right, come on, let's go into the store, y'all. Devon goes and starts walking towards the altercation, okay? Now, I'm like, what is he doing? I'm like, babe, come back, okay? I got the kids, okay? So I'm just like, I can't really do too much. He's telling me, no, go inside the store. But in my mind, I'm like, I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place, y'all, because it's like, I don't want my husband get into an altercation and something happens and then I'm in the store. I don't know what happens. I'm just oblivious to what's going on. So I'm like telling Aria to go to the corner, like where I can see her, but I'm still trying to look out. But again, I can't see y'all. I don't have my glasses. And so it continues. I guess the altercation escalates and you can kind of tell from what you saw because I wasn't out there. But it escalated to the point where Devon he intervened to help the situation or de-escalate the situation, which, to be honest, he was, in my eyes, a guardian angel or heaven sent at that moment for those two individuals because... Or dumb. Depending on how you look at it. But I feel like it was definitely... you were there for a reason, I feel like. because the way that you handled yourself and the way that you were interacting with both of the individuals, it definitely, I feel like, de-escalated a situation that could have went very bad.
Yeah.
And so you can just share like what your up close and personal experience was with it.
Well, like you said, when we got to the store, they just started arguing in the middle of the street. The one guy who thought he was about to get hit walked up on a car and stood in front of it and was just yelling. So the driver got out the car. He walked around to the front and he's yelling at the dude to get out the way. And he's not moving. Mm-hmm. So the guy pushes him out the way and then he walks back to the front of the car. So then the driver went to the back seat and pulled out a gun. And I'm sitting there because everybody who was in the parking lot had already pulled out their phones. It was recording because, we live in the age of social media. Everybody wants to catch stuff on film. Mm-hmm. And I'm just watching the guy grab the gun out his back seat and walk up to the front and point it at the dude's head. And at first I'm like, oh man, I ain't about to get into this. Like he about to throw it all away.
Yeah.
But then I heard his kids in the back seat. And I'm like, man, he about to do this in front of his kids. It's about to be Christmas. And not only are you about to do something, number one, that's going to take another man's life, but you about to go to jail for life. And they're going to lose their dad.
Right.
So Christmas, the holiday season, ain't going to be the same for them ever again. Mm-hmm. So I'm sitting there going back and forth with myself like, yo, do I just, mind my business or try to go over there and de-escalate the problem? Because I don't want to see my man throw his life away, not for something that's dumb.
Right.
So I'm just like, all right, I told Asha and Aria, am I to just stay inside the store and I'll be right back. So I made a call out to the dude with the gun before I walked up because I'm not about to just walk up to you and you think, I'm trying to do something to you, and then you turn around and end up shooting me.
Right.
So I was just telling him like, yo, don't throw away your life for this dude. Like, it don't make no sense. So he looked at me and was like, you right. And he put his gun up into his waistband. So I started walking towards him now. And he's telling his girl to get into the driver's seat and move the car around the guy so that they can leave. Mm-hmm. But the one guy just kept following the car. Yeah. So I walk up to him. I'm like, yo, I'll hold him back. You go get into the car with your family and leave. And he was like, all right, I appreciate it. So he got into the car and he drove off. And the one guy that was left behind was like, yo, why would he do that? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, y'all got, it's too much ego going on from both of y'all. Y'all both about to make a decision that's going to alter the rest of y'all lives. Mm-hmm. Over what? I tell dudes all the time, like, yo, we don't make decisions and live with them. We make decisions and live with the consequences. Right. And clearly y'all wasn't thinking about the consequences of your action. Like, you was scared because you thought you were going to get hit, but yet you was willing to put your life on the line to die because you was upset. Because even when the dude pulled out a gun, he wasn't backing down.
Right.
I'm like, oh, this man crazy. And then the other guy willing to throw it all away for what?
Right.
So gladly both of them was able to walk away. They probably got the one guy probably got some mental scars because anytime you have a gun put to your head, that's going to mess you up. But they both walked away with their lives, which I think is most important. And they ain't got to mess up the holiday season for their families.
And it's so interesting that we're having this conversation because when we were going to the store that day, we were supposed to be going to another store, or Devon thought we were going to another store. And he was like, had I known that we were going to this store, because it's a little distance from our house, he was like, I wouldn't have gone. But just thinking about, like, if he had known and we had went to the store and something had transpired, or if that had transpired and he wasn't there, how could that have went, right? And that's why I say you was there for a reason, because, again, it was multiple people in the parking lot, but no one thought to, like, intervene and de-escalate the situation or try to help the situation. So if no one was there, it could have went left, something could have happened, unfortunately, that would have affected both of those individuals. And so I was just grateful in that moment that nothing happened to you, but also nothing happened to them as well, because that would have been very tragic and very unnecessary.
Yeah, don't think I'm gonna be out here being Superman all the time. No, that was probably like a one-time thing. Like, anytime, because things can turn left in a blink of an eye, especially down here in Houston. Like, Texas people got some road rage if I ever seen it.
Yeah.
Like, it is crazy down here. And normally I wouldn't even intervene because of my upbringing. I know how crazy things can get that fast. But especially if somebody pull out a gun, I would never really jump into it or try to de-escalate it, because you never know what that person would do to you who got the gun. But it was just something, I don't know, something was pulling me to do it. Like, don't just stand around and let this man do it, especially when I heard his kids, because then I connected with him as a father. Like, I get you trying to protect your family. That's why you escalating things so quickly. But I ain't really trying to have that. I did it more for his kids than I did for him. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't want that to be on their conscience and that to be something they think about every Christmas, where it's supposed to be a feel-good season. And you like, man, I ain't got my dad no more because this happened around Christmas. But even the reaction from the guy who almost got hit, like, he started crying when he was talking to me, thanking me for intervening, because I think that once the emotions wore off and all that adrenaline went away, he realized, I could have lost my life. Yeah. So I don't advise anybody to step into a situation where people pulling out guns, but I don't know what was on my mind at the time, but I just didn't want to see that go down. Yeah. So we're thankful that went the right way instead of the wrong way. But moving along to our message from a real one, okay? What we got today? Okay, so she says, hello. Thank you guys for providing such a great platform for people trying to figure it out. I know that's right, girl. Marriage is figure-outable. I need help with getting my boyfriend to understand that it's inappropriate for him to be receiving text messages and phone calls from friends first thing in the morning, all day, and in late hours of the night. Okay. I'm cool with him having friends, but I haven't met any of these friends, and they tend to text good morning, first thing, and good night. I know I'm not crazy, but I need some help. If you have anything on this subject, please let me know or give me advice. Thanks. I would assume these are female friends. Of course. Friends. You know when you do the little quotes like, friends, those your friends. Yeah. So I would say personally that it is a little suspect. Ain't a little lot of suspect because, and it's throw up the red flag, okay? Because if you have friends, one, I feel like in a relationship, and we talked about this on a previous episode where we talked about having friends once you get in a relationship. But if you have friends that are strictly friends that have been there, I feel like, why have I not met your friends? Why have you not met my friends, right? Yeah. I think that's pretty much, once you are in a relationship and you're in a serious relationship, it's only right and respectable that you introduce your friends, if that's what it is. Because then you start to allow that person to think, or question, what is the intentions of your friends and how much are they truly just a friend? Right. And so if she doesn't know that his friends, if they haven't met, she's not in communication with them and he's not really making her feel comfortable with their relationship, of course there's going to be, questions and assumptions and red flags going up because I don't really feel comfortable with this situation, right? Yeah. But not only that, if you are, we already know the good morning text, we already know what that's here for, right? Most of us is not good morning texting people if they're not the first thing on our mind. Usually the first thing on your mind is somebody that you're interested in. Right. Or that you worried about. Right. Now, some people may be a great friend and just, I just want to send out good morning texts to my friends. There may likelihood of that happening. There may be some independent individuals out in the world that does that, but like you said, the likelihood is very slim to none. So if you are getting those good morning texts every single morning and y'all are talking throughout the day and the whole good night, it's not even starting. It's suspicious. Yeah. And so I think a conversation needs to be had where it's like, one, I don't feel comfortable with this. I feel like it's inappropriate. I would like there to be some boundaries set, and I would like to know who your friends. Like, if we are friends, okay, your friends is my friends. My friends is your friends if we just friends, right? And so let's communicate and get to know each other, but let's also set some boundaries if I'm feeling uncomfortable, right? And I think that's a conversation that honestly needs to be had. And if you can't respect that or do that, then this is definitely another conversation that we need to talk about if this going to work. Yeah. And even if, I'm going to take it off of him getting the text message from the opposite sex just for a little bit and just speak about introducing people to your friends, period. I think that in a relationship, you know that things are progressing and you're moving to the next stage when you let down your guard and you start to allow people to enter your world. Whether that be family or friends, you start to introduce them to people who are close to you because now your guard is down. You feel like you can trust this person and you want them to experience all of you.
Right.
And all of you includes those people who make a positive impact on your life, including friends, including family members. So if you're in a relationship where that person has not gotten to a place where they want to introduce you to those people that are closest to them, obviously there's not enough trust in that relationship. There's not enough connection in that relationship. When it comes to the opposite sex, again, we talk all the time on this podcast about building walls around your relationship and protecting it. And if this person is building walls around these friendships with females and keeping you out of it, that, like Asha said, that is a red flag. Something is going on. Because in any situation, again, if we go back to the connection, if I'm doing something that's hurting you, we're so connected that I'm going to make the effort to stop those things.
Right.
Or to figure out why is it hurting you so bad. I'm not going to continue to do it because, oh, this is what I like to do. I like to talk to this person. It's good for my well-being. In a committed relationship, the other person's well-being should mean just as much to you as your own well-being.
Right.
And if you're taking certain actions, you're doing certain things, you have certain habits, you're going certain places that's affecting them in a negative way, that issue needs to be addressed. And if you're not willing to address it, you guys are not connected enough. So in this situation, like Asha said, you got to draw the line. Because if you talked about how this bothered you before and you told him that you wouldn't accept it, but yet you keep accepting it, you're letting him know that you can continue to do whatever you're doing regardless of how it makes me feel. And you don't want to do that in a relationship. And then sometimes if the person's not willing to change, you got to be willing to walk away. Because when we invest a certain amount of time or energy into a person that we know is not the right one for us, we'll continue to do it.
Right.
Because we don't want them to go into a next relationship and that relationship ends up working. Or we don't want to feel like we just wasted a year or a couple of months in our lives on a relationship that doesn't work out. So a lot of times we stay in a relationship for way too long when we know it does not serve any purpose in our life. So hopefully he's able to change. From the sounds of it, it doesn't look like he's willing to do that. And you got to make that tough decision that a lot of people aren't willing to make.
Yeah. And I think it's big of her to say that she's okay with him having friends. Because a lot of times when you're in a relationship, people will say, oh, well, I'm not comfortable with you having any friends of the opposite sex. So I think it is big that she's willing and open to, to accept the fact that he may have friends, female friends, and they be in communication. But like you said, I think it's just a matter of having that conversation, because I know from personal experience of a friend that's not necessarily a friend. And if he may be looking at it like they're, just strictly friends, right? He may feel like he's in control of the situation, is, oh, that's just my friend. But you never know what someone else's intentions are. So maybe they are sending those good morning texts or just communicating throughout the day and at night, trying to fill it out to see where they can slide in, or maybe they can potentially, be that person for them.
Yeah.
So you don't know the other party's intentions. So by him allowing her to meet those friends and her to see their interaction and, get a feel for it, then you can better understand, like, oh no, this is genuinely his friend,
Yeah.
She's not looking for more. He's not looking for more. And then you can go from there. But without that, you just allow someone to just make assumptions up in their head. And that's never good in a relationship. So,
yeah. But even if she doesn't know the friend's intentions, well, I guess as a woman, you probably know what the intentions are. If you're doing good morning text throughout the day and text at night. But let's just say, like, as you said, it's an assumption. But even if she doesn't know what their intentions are, she knows that he has an inability to lead.
Okay.
Because like I said before, I was failing as a leader because in the beginning of our relationship, I didn't set certain boundaries. And the fact that he's not willing to set certain boundaries, like, listen, I don't know what your intentions are, but you know I'm in a relationship.
Yeah.
And this is not going to work. I value our friendship, but not at the expense of my relationship.
Right.
And a true friend, if they know that they're impacting your relationship and they believe it's good for you, you talk about how good this relationship is to you, they're going to fall back naturally because they care about you that much, that they know that this journey that you're on with that next person is going to contribute to your growth and help you get to a place where you want to be. They're not going to intervene and throw challenges into your relationship if they're a true friend. So even if you don't know the friend's intentions, you know that there is a problem with his ability to lead and protect you.
Yeah. I feel like and I'm just saying this, if we probably going on with the message, but I just want to like kind of break this down because I feel like it's important. But for me, I feel like if someone is truly your friend, they're open to meeting the person that you're interested in, right?
Yeah.
And communicating. And I thought even with you and I before, Devon had friends from college that he was friends with that were women. And so to me, I was a little taken back by it because of my previous experience that just was, like I said, similar to this. And it wasn't the friend case, right?
Yeah.
But him and his friends, you know, coming down here and, you know, us meeting up and being able to meet them and see them, I understood that, oh, okay, this is genuinely a friend. Yeah. Now, again, it's not like this where he talks to them on an everyday basis or they're calling and texting his phone or anything like that. But just having a friend and it's strictly being that and being able to meet them and go out to dinner and see how they interact and all of that type of stuff, even before we got married. And I was able to say, okay, no, you know what? These people are genuinely his friends. He's genuinely their friend and it's nothing else. Yeah. So I feel like when that's the case, you're able, like I said, from a woman's perspective, you can kind of fill it out by being around that person. And if those friends are truly just a friend, they don't mind meeting you because they want the best for their friend as well. So
even when it came down to our wedding, that you brought it up. Like Asha said, I have some friends from college that I brought to the wedding because they did play a role in my life, in my growth when I was in college. And there were some people who were in that friend group that I was cool with, but I had did things with in the past. And although we were no longer still doing those things, I didn't invite them to the wedding.
Yeah,
and they got mad. They was mad like, oh, everybody else is going to the wedding. They didn't say it to me because I wasn't in contact with this person, but they're like, everybody else going to the wedding and I can't. I'm like, what in your right mind would make you even think that would be okay?
Yeah, for
you to be at my wedding, knowing that we had a history before. I wouldn't even be comfortable putting that or letting you play in my wife's face like that. Yeah. That don't even make no sense. Like I'm setting the tone from day one that even if we cool and we did something in the past, you can't be around no more.
Yeah, that's another thing. So I think that clarifying if those friends are strictly friends or if you had previous relations with those friends as well. Because a lot of times where it's like, oh, well, we're just friends, he may not disclose that, oh, well, we did have some type of history beforehand. Yeah. And for me, I feel like anytime where you do have a friend of the opposite sex and y'all did have a previous, relation sexually, that it's an automatic no-go, right? Because regardless of how you feel about it, there's a possibility that lines could be crossed. Right back in. Right, lines could be crossed because you did become intimate with that person. And so I feel like just to avoid any type of altercation that could transpire, any type of whoopsie-doo, just to avoid it, because what is the reason?
How did I end up in here?
Right, what is the reason? We don't need to go that route. It was what it was, it happened, and let's move forward. So I feel like if that's the case where the friends are someone where he or she, whoever this may pertain to, where you had history with that friend, in your new relationship, you have to know how to cut ties with people. And so it no longer serves you if you're with this person, you're wanting to move forward with them, that you're holding on from people from your past. And so I think if that's the case, automatically nip it in the bud.
Yeah, I'm not prioritizing no other relationship over my relationship with my significant other.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. If I'm trying to build a life with you, I'm trying to build a life in which you're comfortable with. Not saying that there won't be moments of discomfort, but I'm not going to purposely add discomfort to our relationship. If we're making a commitment to do life together, that means that we have to make certain changes in our lives in order to include each other in our lives. I think most people struggle because they want their cake and eat it too. And I know you always say, ain't that what you're supposed to do? Right? But you can't keep everything from your singleness and bring it into your togetherness.
Yes.
Because when you were single, it was all about you. It was all about your happiness. It was all about your well-being. But when you come together with another person, it should be about both of your happiness, both of your well-being. It's about letting go of, like I said, those behaviors, those habits, those places, those things that can diminish your partner's well-being, because it should be our job to do things to help increase or add to their well-being, not take away from it.
Right.
Everybody wants a successful marriage until a successful marriage requires them to give more than they're willing to give. Having a successful marriage looks good to people. It sounds good to people until they sit down and like, oh, I got to let go of this. I got to let go of this habit. I got to stop going to this place. I can't hang around with these people because they don't serve or they're not good for my marriage.
Right.
When people really have to sit down and think about the sacrifices that they have to make, most people ain't willing to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm not telling you to give everything up or go against your values and go against your beliefs. But if there are certain actions or behaviors or habits or places or things that are getting in between you and your spouse, you got to let it go.
Right.
And start to come up with new things that serves both you, your partner, and your union.
Yeah. So hopefully, girl, you got your answer from that. Just to have an in-depth conversation, express how you feel, and see where it goes from there. Yeah. But getting into today's topic, you guys. So we wanted to just chat about a couple of things that was on our hearts that we saw that we wanted to share with you all. But first, we want to get into what we call the breakthrough, right? So do you want to start or you want me to start?
I want you to start.
Okay, so
it's your story.
So on a previous podcast, we had discussed challenges of being a blended family, right? I think right now in the season of our life, this has been probably the biggest challenge for the longest amount of time.
It's no probably. Let's take that probably.
Okay,
out.
this has been the biggest, the biggest challenge. The biggest challenge for the longest amount of time. And if you haven't gone and listened to that episode, then you can listen to that episode. But just to give y'all a little backstory, we are a blended family. When Devon and I got together, he had a daughter, Leah, before me. And so we got together. In the beginning, everything was great. Leah was at about 2 years old when I met Devon. So she was in the very young phase of life where I feel like so many kids at 2 to 4-ish, that's a phase of just them wanting to be friends with everybody, right? You
buy
like
me
I
a
said,
popsicle, you take me get some ice cream, we best friends.
Right. That's what it is. I hear even with Aria now throughout that same age range that if you just play with a Barbie or you buy her a piece of candy, she's just like, oh, that's my bestie. Hey. And so I came into introduction with her through that phase. And throughout that process, like we talked about, we had some ups and downs just because of things that Devon was going through with her mom and things that was just transpiring that just wasn't good at all. Right. And so from there, it affected our Leah and I relationship drastically. Right. And going into the situation, I always told myself, and I told Devon, I told Leah, I was very open about it because I came from a blended family. I'm a part of a blended family. My dad remarried to my stepmom. And so I experienced a blended family that was very much distasteful, right? It turned me off to blended families. I'm going to be completely...
You search for that word. You try to be politically correct.
It turned me off. It did. It turned me off. And I always said, even into my early adulthood, that I didn't want to date a man with children. Just because...
But I'm Himothy, so I changed your mind. Sorry.
I didn't because I saw how the dynamic affected everyone. Yeah. And I understood how it affected me personally, and I didn't want that for myself. But in, growing up, a lot of times when you have in your mind that something's going to play out a certain way, you don't realize that, okay, well, I'm not always in control of life, and you
especially
fall.
when I get good pipe. It's like, I'm sorry.
Oh my goodness. We're going to edit that out.
No, we ain't. That changed somebody's mind real quick.
Stop, okay?
Jimmy John's fast.
Y'all.
I'm sorry.
I can't. But no, you cannot help all the time who you fall in love with. And so we met. I understood the situation, but I went into our relationship thinking like, you know what? I'm going to be the complete opposite of what I had, right? So I was very open. I try to be very open. I try to communicate certain things. I try to interact a certain way because of what I didn't receive growing up. And of course, like, you're not always in control of all the factors, right? And so if everybody, all the adults, which we talked about, is not on the same page, then it doesn't quite work out like that. I didn't understand that going in, but I quickly understood that. And so our relationship started to take a shift throughout her battle with cancer, because she was getting a little bit older and she was being exposed to certain interactions between all the adults. She was hearing things that she shouldn't have been hearing. And so it was just very negative, right? And so in the midst of all of that, again, Leah wasn't living with us at the time. And then Devon received custody and then she moved with us. And so that shifted things drastically, right? Yeah. If it wasn't already going downhill, it started to really go downhill, because you think as a child moving from where you're used to and to another environment, and now you're having to be around your step parent, predominantly with your biological parent, it's a huge shift.
Because
right?
It ain't just about getting ice cream no more. It's about cleaning up your room.
Right. It's about you being in control, it's about the child being in a different controlled environment than what they're used to. And, different parenting styles, different, like you said, having different responsibilities. And so now where it goes from our relationship is more so, friendly, like, oh, let's just go out and hang out. Now I'm having to, okay, clean up your room, do this. I'm having to parent in a sense. And for a lot of children that are in blended families, parenting from a parent that's not your biological parent is hard to accept. Right. And so for me, I feel like not knowing that, it caused a huge friction, because I was just trying to parent the best way that I thought I could parent or knew how to parent, while also trying to be understanding of the situation. And we talked about this as well. I feel like we didn't really communicate what that looked like. And so with us not communicating what that looked like, with us not being intentional with how we were going to, navigate parenting together, especially in a blended family, things just didn't mesh well, right? And so there was a lot of, back and forth. There was a lot of mixed communication because, again, two separate households not being on the same page, everyone not getting along for, the benefit of the child. It was just a lot. And so it caused a huge shift in our relationship. And this is, for the most part, a lot of times where social media came into play for me, because
y'all used to piss her off.
I didn't know, but I didn't really discuss it because, like I said, I'm more reserved of a person when it comes to social media, right? And so before, you would see pictures, and people on social media would see pictures here and there of Leah or see me posting things, and then I stopped, right? And of course, I'm not about to just divulge a whole story on social media, but people probably didn't understand that. Right. And then once I had Aria, then I started posting pictures of Ari and me and you and this, that, and the third. And it was not as many, if all, pictures of Leah. So then people started to write comments, questioning things and questioning my attention. And it was very frustrating, because I feel like a lot of times, people on social media are just all up in your business, but really don't know nothing. So they just speak whatever comes to mind. It's just like, y'all don't know the situation. I didn't want to divulge information because I never wanted to paint Leah out in a certain way. I didn't really care to paint any of the other adults out in a certain way, because it was just like, for what? Because at the end of the day, that's not going to help the situation. So I just chose not to say much about it. And then it also was a little bit frustrating, because it's like, now that I'm in a position of, I have given birth to a biological child and I want to post, now it's a lot of negative comments of me just being a mom and posting my experience as a mom and being able to freely post my child, which I didn't feel like I was able to do with Leah, right? Because it was a lot that came with me posting her. And so I was very frustrated about the situation. I was frustrated about the home life situation. So I'm like, okay, people are expecting me to just show up online on social media and display my life for a picture for
fake it to make them happy.
Right. For their benefit. But they don't know all the pain and trauma that I'm going through behind closed doors, trying to build a relationship that is crumbling. And I feel like I really don't have control of. And so that was very frustrating. And we dealt with this. We're still dealing with this to a certain degree, but we dealt with this back and forth for about 3 years, 4 years, where it was just like it was very heavy in this household, and it caused a lot of friction. And so we went to counseling. We talked about it. We started to implement things that we were looking into. And
Counseling was trash, by the way. Let me just put that out there.
It was. And I feel like, honestly, I don't feel like counseling is trash for everybody. I feel like it takes the right person, the right person and the right, what I want to say, the right tools, right? Yeah. To really implement and work on things. Because I think a lot of times when you go to counseling, it's very much a cookie cutter type of thing. Like they try to make everything fit into one shape a lot of times. So they're giving you what they learned from school, right?
And it may not be up to date.
Right. It may not. And it's like, okay, I learned this, but this is how we're going to do this. And it's not really always shaped to what that person's particular situation is. And I feel like we kept running into that, where it was like, we're going to counseling and we get to a point where it's just like, okay, well, you don't really quite get this situation. You're not really grasping how or what we need to do. And it wasn't until I feel like when you were learning more about how to shape and shift the dynamic of our situation when you went into school for positive psychology, and also with me just seeking other ways to go about things and us having deeper conversations, that things started to really take a shift. Right. And we started to implement those tools in our relationship, in our home relationship. And so I think that's when we started to really see a turn around that bend. And which led to recently us what we said now is being the breakthrough where we're at right now.
Tell us about the breakthrough. What happened? But before you tell about the breakthrough, let's hang them on a cliffhanger real quick. But to even go back to the whole therapy thing or counseling, I'm not saying that counseling as a whole is trash, but there are some trash counselors out there who are just doing it to get a paycheck and are not really keeping up to date with new breakthroughs, right? They're trying to get you to do old things that may not work for your situation. But there's this thing called bibliotherapy, which basically means you are able to gain understanding, counseling, and wisdom from literature, reading different books, reading different articles, reading research papers that allows you to have certain breakthroughs because you know your situation the best. And the moment we started doing that, the moment that we started reading books about blended families and the different interventions that you can use in order to shift the dynamic, we empowered ourselves to actually make that shift on our own. Like we had more impact on our blended family by doing the work on our own versus going to actual counseling. And I think that a lot of couples out there, a lot of people don't understand the power in you doing your own research and you trying different things out in your relationship because you know what works for your family more than any outside person can do. Right. So that's something like when we start to really build our community, we're going to teach you a lot about bibliotherapy. We're going to make sure that you have the knowledge and the tools to empower yourselves in order to make certain shifts in your relationship, because everybody not comfortable with therapy and counseling. Right. I wasn't comfortable with therapy and counseling. I just did it because I'm like, yo, even if I'm not comfortable with doing it, I know that breakthroughs happen on the other end of discomfort. And I'm trying to get this family right. So yeah, I'll go talk to this stranger, although I don't want them to know my business because of who I am. I don't know who they're going to go talk to about what's going on. But the moment that we took accountability and we took back control is the moment that we had the breakthrough. But go ahead and share that breakthrough.
Yeah. So before I share the breakthrough, I just want to say I can't stress enough how important it is that all the adults be on the same page. Because I feel like when you're in the situation of a blended family, if you are not, and what I mean by the same page is that it's not that you're possibly all going to be on the same page. Kumbaya. It's more so.
Twins. How we just say that together?
Because that's what a lot of people think. And I feel like even with social media, a lot of times you'll see people where they are, we're blended family, and they have they present such a picture perfect painting of what it is
wanted you to do it,
to be a blended family, and that doesn't work for everybody, right? And so I feel like as long as all the parents are respectable and are intentional about making things about the child and how they can be in the best position, that's the most important thing. Mm-hmm. But besides it just being about the child, because that's not just the only thing, it's about being respectful. Right. So if all the adults are respectful to amongst each other to some degree of understanding, okay, we're all parenting this child, trying to raise them up to be the best individual. And this may look different over here and this may look different over here, but you're showing that you respect that person, you're appreciative of that person, and you aren't crossing certain lines. I think things will go a lot better. Yeah. So I feel like that is the key to doing things, period. Right. That wasn't necessarily the thing for us, right? We had to learn how to navigate within our own household and learn that we really don't control outside forces. And so I think, to me, the breakthrough really came with, one, Leah being older and us being able to have more intentional conversations, but her being able to understand things from not just one perspective that she was getting, right? Mm-hmm. She's able to understand everyone's perspective to a certain degree, and she's able to now articulate and express her perspective. Mm-hmm. And I think that's when things started to really take a shift, because we weren't there when she was in her younger years, right? She didn't have the words. We didn't have the words. And so, like you said, us doing that research and having these conversations, because we had a lot of conversations.
And they wouldn't get nowhere.
A lot. Like, we felt like we were making progress, and then it would just go backwards. And we would have a conversation again, make progress, and we would go backwards. And I, like I said, was feeling drained. Like, if y'all didn't watch our previous episode on blended families, y'all definitely have to go back, because I felt like it was a lot of gems that were dropped in that episode that will help you understand how to navigate a blended family. And I think that also opened a conversation for us as well of understanding the child's perspective, because I never really understood the child's perspective to that degree before that conversation, even though I feel like I was that child. But I only understood my perspective. So I feel like when you do the research and you do open yourself up to hearing different perspectives and opinions and experiences from other people, it allows you to see things from just not only your lens. And now you can understand, well, I may feel like this and I may have handled this situation like this, but this is how someone else handles it. And that could work too. And so I think all of that, was a combination of all those things, helped us to get to the point where we are now, where we were able. Let me bring back. Not only that, but I got to clap it up for my husband, okay? Because I feel like...
No, we're going to do a real clap. We're going to do
clap
a real
it up. Because I feel like you had a intervention that really set the tone for us, right?
You going to tell them our intervention?
So go ahead. I'm not going to go into
normally
deep.
No, go ahead. Because normally people sell this type of information, but we ain't about just making money off of people. We here because we really want to help people.
Right.
So go ahead and share the intervention.
Right. So, okay. So we had, like I said, we had a lot of conversations previously, and we would always backtrack. But we were sitting down one time, and Devon had suggested that we do basically like perspective taking from the other person. So we sat down and we would write a journal entry as if it's like a diary entry. Me speaking in the tone of Leah and Leah speaking in the tone of me. So how I felt like Leah felt maybe about everything that transpired, how I felt as Leah about our relationship, just my journal entry. If I was writing as Leah, what she felt about the situation, right? About me, about whatever. And so, I I was speaking in her voice and she was speaking in my voice, and we were to present that to each other. Mm-hmm. And I'm not gonna lie, it took a few days to come up with that perspective, but I feel like when I started writing, it started flowed, because again, I feel like in a sense I know her because I was her at one time, right? And so we started to really unpack things, and when we sat down, we started to have that conversation. It was amazing because both of us really understood how the other person felt, right? And Leah had said, that sounds like me to a T. Mm-hmm. And even with her speaking as a 13-year-old, understanding how I feel, and as an adult trying to, constantly build a relationship, but feeling like I'm not getting anywhere, like for her to really be able to articulate it, it was very eye-opening, because both of us didn't realize that we understood each other's feelings, right?
That was that was both of y'all's biggest complaint, is they don't understand what I'm going through.
Right. And so, for example, not to go too much into it, but just being able to say, you know what, if I'm speaking as Leah, it is difficult, moving and not being raised by my stepmom, and us having such a strained relationship, and wanting that, but not knowing how to, right? Yeah. So I was able to put words to her voice, which she didn't realize that I even understood her voice, and vice versa. And I think that really set the tone for, okay, I'm not talking to a wall, okay? It's like I'm actually getting through to this individual. They're actually understanding. And that allowed for us to continue to have that conversation. So we had that one Sunday, and then we were able to, after that, have a conversation about it, to understand, to really work through it and understand, okay, well, we understand each other's perspective. So your biggest thing, what you were saying, is what's the disconnect? Because if you're able to see what this person is thinking, and you're able to, really embody their feelings and understand them, okay, so where's the disconnect lie? And that put a better understanding on, okay, what needs to be fixed? What's missing? Because we both get it. We both see each other or hear each other. So now what? And I think that really opened the door to start to make the shift and get back to, some type of normalcy. Yeah. Which leads us to the breakthrough, right?
Hold on, before we get to the breakthrough, I know we keep pushing
y'all
it
like,
back
where's the breakthrough?
I think it's important to go back to what you just said about being able to understand each other's perspectives, because there may be some parents out there right now who are mad, who are frustrated, because they're saying, I keep having these conversations, and it's like you just said, talking to a brick wall. They don't understand what I'm sharing with them. They don't understand my perspective. And for my thesis in grad school, my research was focused on adolescents and kids. And one of the things that really stuck out to me that pertained to our situation is kids can't do perspective taking. They suck at it. Seriously, they suck at being able to understand another person's perspective because of the brain development they're going through. And when I read that, when I did my research on that, I said, oh, this is why.
Yeah.
This is why we keep having issues, because we're trying to have this conversation and we think that we're communicating in the right way. And for some reason, they're not getting it.
Right.
And then it was like, oh, this is why this is not connecting. So let's develop an intervention that can increase the perspective taking of the child.
Right.
And that's when I came up with the journal entries, and it was a big shift. So for the parents out there who may be frustrated, even if you're not in a blended family, if your kids are struggling to understand what you're trying to communicate with them, it's not that they don't want to, they struggle bad because of their brain development. But if you teach them how to do it, then they can work in that area. So again, we can't expect people to do things if we're not teaching, especially kids. We can't expect them to be able to behave a certain way or to do certain things if you have never taught them how to do it. But
right. So, we getting deep, y'all. Okay. So we had a conversation. I was very emotional in that conversation because of how things was, because over the years and everything. And I felt like I needed to express to Leah that I loved her, right? Because although Devon, I don't know, maybe he had known from the things that I did, between the conversations that we had from previously about how I was there to, you know, help support Leah or be there, and the things that I've done throughout the years to really try to show up for her. But I never really said, I love you, right? That was never our relationship, because once we started to get to the point of trying to build a relationship, it was so much strain. And I didn't really know how to put the words to it because I didn't experience it, right? I never heard growing up my stepmom say I love you at all to me. And so it was uncomfortable trying to walk that walk, even if you feel like you love somebody, right?
Is there a fear of rejection?
It could be a fear of rejection to a certain degree, especially with our situation, because I feel like I was very vulnerable a lot of times, only to get dismissed or rejected, right? Mm-hmm. And so after constantly being rejected, it doesn't matter if it's, you know, a adult parent-child relationship. It's just like, okay, well, dang.
It hurts.
Let me not, right? Mm. And so I never really felt comfortable with that. But just me, naturally, like I constantly was loving on everybody in the household. And that wasn't the case for Lee and I. And so I was just like in the midst of that conversation, because I started to go down like how much I love this man, that I'm still here trying to, you know, make this relationship work. And I'm trying my hardest to really break through and build this connection, because I love him and I want things to work. And somewhere in my mind, I don't know what, it just came to me, and it was just like, you know what? Yeah, I love him, but I love you too. And I don't know if you really know that or feel that, because you haven't heard that. But I felt like in that moment I had to say it, so that it could be a breakthrough of you being like, dang, I hear how much you love my dad. I see how much you love my dad. I see how much you love my siblings, but I don't know if you love me. Mm-hmm. I know that you take care of me. I know that you do things for me, but I don't know if you genuinely love me.
Yeah.
And I think me being like, you know what, in that moment, it has to be said, because maybe that's a part of, or the key that's missing to say, you know what, this person genuinely cares about me. This person really does love me and really does want to be in my life and build a relationship with me. I think that really was like putting the key in the lock and turning it, right, to open that door. And
let me ask you something. Does that go back to what we said before?
What?
Whenever there's not clarity, there's chaos?
Absolutely.
If you don't know how somebody genuinely feels about you?
Absolutely.
It gets chaotic.
Yes. And I had in my notes of what to bring up, because you can even put that to your relationship, right? Mm-hmm. What you talked about. When you're in a relationship with somebody and there is no, you know, clear understanding of what we are, where we're going, you know, how we feel about each other. If we don't have a clear understanding of what is going on, it's chaotic.
Yeah.
And you're arguing, you're confused, and you're not understanding this person. You feel like this person's not understanding you. Y'all constantly butting heads because there's no clear understanding of what it is.
Yeah. Then there's no progress because there's so much protection.
Right. And that's exactly what it was. It was just chaotic because there was no clarity. And so I feel like that was the clarity that needed to be had, where it was, okay, I not only love your father, but I love you. Otherwise, I wouldn't be trying so hard to make amends or work on this relationship. And to me, it was like putting the last piece of a puzzle together in my mind. Because like I said, I had always tried to do things opposite of what I experienced, right? I had always tried to show up and, you know, be present. I tried to have certain conversations. I tried to do certain things, buy certain things, all the things that I didn't experience from my own stepmom, right? Mm-hmm. But the last thing of actually connecting to the emotion, the love, which I never got, it was like, that's the piece.
Yeah.
You never did that. And maybe, I would say God, I believe in God. God was just like speaking through me. Now's the time. Put the piece of that puzzle and complete it. That's not to say things are going to be perfect, but this puzzle, that's what needed to be done.
Yeah.
And once that happened, there was definitely a shift, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because from there, we were able to have not only a conversation, but we were able to get back to being affectionate in a sense, or working towards being more affectionate, right? Because we weren't really we weren't
And
hugging.
in a sense, let me get to this part. Okay? Because first of all, let me take it back a little bit, because I know you clapped it up for me earlier, and I'm going to clap it up for you right now. Because, as you just said, when we had that in-depth conversation, the one thing that I noticed you were doing during that conversation that you haven't done before was practicing everything that we learned in the Smart Step family.
Mm-hmm.
From the book and from talking to Ron.
Mm-hmm.
You literally were practicing what we learned. Like everybody says, knowledge is power. Knowledge is not power. Knowledge is potential power. You have to apply that knowledge to your situation in order for it to be powerful. And the fact that you were having this conversation and you were applying the things that we learned about was the difference maker in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
That's what made the shift. And then when you opened up, it opened her up. Because, as we talked about before, a good communication between people is when I can explain what's on my heart and it impacts your heart.
Mm-hmm.
When you explain what was on your heart, I saw it directly impact Leah's heart by way of her tears.
Mm-hmm.
You unlocked her heart. And the next day she told you, or maybe the next day or the day after that, she told you she loved you.
Mm-hmm.
Because now she knew. And when I was talking to her, she said, I always loved Ma. I didn't know how much she loved me because of everything that happened. So you gave her permission to express her inner world because you expressed yours.
Mm-hmm.
And then not only did it go from the I loves you, which I've never heard, but now y'all were hugging each other, showing that affection. And then when I talked to Leah, because I was out of town when this happened, I didn't even know, but I asked her about it and she was like, I was so surprised, but it felt so good because me and Ma haven't hugged since I was 8 years old. She knew the age.
Yeah.
Like seriously, she didn't struggle like, 7 or 8 years. She said, we haven't hugged since I was 8.
Yeah.
And it felt good.
Mm-hmm.
So again, a lot of credit goes to you because even with this podcast, like we try to give y'all as much information as possible. We try to give y'all as much research as possible because we understand now how powerful this stuff is.
Yeah.
But the problem is most people don't know the research. But that's why we're here, to be able to deliver it to you in a way that you can understand and implement. So don't just listen to these podcasts for entertainment or the pastime. Listen to it in order to gain knowledge and then start to implement the things that we are teaching you. Because it's our sole purpose. It's our sole mission to give y'all everything you need to make marriage easier. That's our sole purpose. You're going to always have challenges in a relationship, in a marriage. But when you have the skill set, when you have the knowledge to deal with those challenges, you create opportunities. Think about it. We had the challenge of the blended family. Because I had the knowledge about perspective taking, because we had the knowledge of reading Ron's book, the Smart Step Family Marriage, we were able to combat or to meet that challenge with our knowledge. And it created an opportunity that we haven't had in a long time. Mm-hmm. people feel drained when they're trying to meet a challenge they don't have the skills for.
Mm-hmm.
But when your skill set matches the level of the challenge you're dealing with in your family, you're dealing with in your relationship, you're dealing with in your marriage, it's not as draining.
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes marriage easier. The fact that you become better. Because everybody has challenges. Every relationship has challenges. Not everyone knows how to deal with those challenges. And you either run from it or you just give up on it because you're drained by it.
Yeah.
But when you reach that level where your skill set, your knowledge base is at the same level as a challenge, that's when things become easier.
Yeah. I just want to close out with just speaking to a parent that is the step parent, right? Whether it be a stepdad or stepmom, right? Because I know it's extremely hard to be in that position. And if you are working on your relationship and you feel like it's not getting anywhere, I was there literally a few months ago, right? After us being together so many years, after I said being in Leah's life since she was 2, she's now 13. I was there only a few months ago of feeling like I'm not getting anywhere. You can definitely make that shift, but you cannot make it alone. That's first and foremost. That was my biggest thing of thinking that I can just do it myself by doing things that are opposite of what I experience without really knowing how, like you said, to have the knowledge and how to apply it. You have to have the tools and the resources and use them so that it can work for you, because otherwise you can't do it. There's no way you can do it. Also, if there is the outside parent that's not within the house that, you know, is bringing on challenges, I think the biggest thing that I took from the interview with Ron is you cannot control anybody else, right? You can't control what that person is doing, what they're saying, how they're acting. You can only control yourself. And I feel like what he said about being able to just be your best self so much that it makes it that much harder for that person to really penetrate you and penetrate your relationship, even with their child, is all you can do. And I think that really hit home to me because I couldn't control what was going on. I couldn't control what was said about me. And I think that was what was so hard, was if someone is, you know, trying to paint you out to be the negative, evil stepmom, right? Which I get so many messages about from women that's just like, oh, I'm not this bad person, but I'm just painted out like this, right? And I'm just talked about like this, and this is not who I am. And it starts to really take a toll on you because it's just like, that's not your character, right? Once you're able to really know who you are and just show up as who you are, regardless of how other people try to perceive you, regardless of how anybody try to taint your image, it's so much harder for that person to really do anything. Why? Because you are being authentic to who you are, right? So, and as well as a child, even if you're sitting up here saying, oh, you're not my parent, or, oh, I don't have a good relationship with you, I don't have to listen to you, I'm going to still show up and love on you. You know why? Because that love is going to outweigh all of that hate, all of that dysfunction, all of that chaos, all of that negativity. It's really going to outweigh that because it starts to chip at somebody over time. Like, I can't express to you enough. If you are somebody who has experienced, and I have experienced this personally, where somebody is just so negative and stern on just being negative and not building and not connecting with you, right? And every single day, you know that person is just going to be mean and nasty, right? You know they're going to give you an attitude. But every day you say good morning to that person. Every day you asking that person how they doing. At some point, you're chipping away at that cold around that person's heart. That's just like, dang, why are they being so nice to me? Right? And you automatically are just penetrating them by just showing up yourself. So when you feel like someone is not seeing you, when you feel like you're not being heard, you feel like your image and your character is being tainted, continue to be you and show up and pour that love into your family, into that child, because it's going to make a difference in the long run. You may not feel it at that moment, but it's going to make a difference in the long run. And I think that's what really set the tone for me, because having my image tainted so much, it really frustrated me because it was the complete opposite of who I was. And being able to just be like, you know what? I control the narrative within my life. I control the narrative within my household, and I know this isn't who I am. So I have to continue to just be who I am, love the way I love, and show up, and it will make a difference in the long run. It will allow you to have an open conversation and really express things and get a different perspective from your stepchild that you may not have ever gotten because you are being open. And so I just want y'all to really stick in there, have the tough conversations, but continue to do it and know that your partner is there. Hopefully your partner is listening as well. If y'all not listening together, sit them down and have y'all listen, but lean into each other and really use the tools and resources because y'all can get through it.
Yeah. And before we end this, this is just a call to action to all our listeners or viewers out there. If there's things that you've heard from one of our podcasts that you think is a good idea to start implementing into your relationship, make a decision right after you hear this to focus on implementing that one thing before even starting a new year. Just make what is one thing that you heard from this podcast that you know can help your relationship out, and make a commitment right now to apply that to your relationship. Because there's no point of listening to us if you're not going to apply this stuff, because you're not going to get anywhere. Time does not heal all. It's what you do with that time. So you can stay in a relationship for 5-10 years, hoping that the relationship is going to change or that the person is going to change. Nothing changes with time if you don't change. So make the decision today to do something different. In order to get a different outcome, you got to do something different. So just make that decision today.
Yes. So we hope you guys enjoy this episode. We hope you guys really took something from this episode, learned from this episode, and apply it to your own life. And until next time, you guys, keep it real.
Yes, sir.